Live, right? We're going live, yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, what's going on? Good evening, everybody. We're live, and you are in the zombie apocalypse right friggin' now. Okay, well, not yet. It's coming. It's coming though. Um, we are on night 6 of Apocalypse Humpday. So we've been doing this well over a month, and the viewership is growing. So thank you to those who keep coming back, wanting to find out what's going to happen here with the planet, and also thanks to you that like, subscribe, and share to this page and also to my YouTube page. We are up to 20 people, so uh, it's not impressive as far as YouTube subscribers go, but you know what? It's better than nothing. It's better than what I thought it'd be. 20 people. I will take 20 people. No worries there. Anyways, tonight I got a special treat for you. With Apocalypse Hump Day, what I have been doing is I've been reading you short stories that I've written dealing with the apocalypse. And now, last week, we started venturing into the zombie apocalypse, which will lead up into my book, Zechariah 14:12, Humanity's Last Stand. The reason tonight is a special treat is I began writing a prequel novel to Zechariah called Jeremiah 19:9 in the beginning. And I thought, and it's actually a continuance from last week's story. So I thought I would give you guys a treat and give you a chance to delve into how this all started. And then next week we're going to start with the book. We'll be starting with chapter 1 with Zechariah. So, yes, so tonight's story is going to be from Jeremiah 19:9. And I'll be reading the prologue and also part of the first chapter. And that's pretty much all I've got written of it. And then next week, we're going to be going right into the whole full-blown apocalypse. So everybody brace yourself, and let's move in right into the story here. Excuse me. And let me take a quick sip of the nectar of the gods here. Oh, that's a beautiful cup of coffee. All right. Prologue. Marta Cortez kept fighting the tears as they blurred her vision. Despite the alarms going off in the cockpit of the escape capsule, she had suffered so much loss within the last few days of her adventure as a civilian astronaut aboard the International Space Station Mark IV. So many of the crew had been infected, but when her Benjamin was taken, it was too much, and she bailed. They were celebrating their 25th anniversary, and Benji thought it would be fun to take a ride to the ISS. He was always the adventurer, and Marta had always obediently followed his crazy ideas. There was a program offered by SpaceX to civilians to the ISS and spend a month in space with other astronauts. She worried about space travel and had never really wanted to go into space, but Benji had a way of coaxing the do-or-die bitch in her. Their kids were grown and starting their own families, so it was their time now to live. "This is a history-making flight, Marta," Benji said. "We will witness the return of the first faster-than-light spaceship while we're up there." Benji had been an avid fan of Star Trek, and strictly Star Trek. She remembers him dragging her to the 50-year celebration of Star Trek in Minneapolis. She agreed to go as long as she didn't have to dress up and cosplay. He grumbled but compromised. He dressed in his original series Starfleet uniform, while she dressed in her casual jeans and a blouse. They had met William Shatner, the original James T. Kirk, Gates McFadden, the Next Generation's Dr. Crusher. They got a signed 8x10 glossy and a handshake with Connor Trenier, who played Benji's favorite character, Commander Trip Tucker, the first engineer of the Enterprise NX-01. So this trip aboard the SpaceX rocket to a real live space station was a dream come true for her husband. He had made so many sacrifices for her and the kids, she thought he had deserved this. So they went. It had ended up being anything but a dream. The flight was great. The tour of the space station was incredible. But that thing the science team brought aboard the station changed all that. That thing that they had extracted from the meteor. The thing that escaped its container invaded the minds of the crew. One by one it took them, turning them into insane maniacs. When it had invaded the body of her husband, the remaining crew were forced to exterminate her Benjamin. They blew him out of the airlock. She had escaped and jettisoned herself from the station. It wasn't until she began the descent into the atmosphere that she realized it had infected her too. She could feel it moving around inside of her head. It felt like some foreign liquid that was trying to arrange her brain. It was painful, and she could feel herself losing control. A hunger began to build in her, a feral hunger that she knew was not her own. The only thing she knew she had to do was to kill herself before she landed. She needed to destroy this thing in her head before she wasn't in control anymore. She turned off the landing protocols of the escape pod, hoping that this would result in a crash landing. The computer started its alert systems. She flicked off the oxygen, hoping to suffocate herself before the crash. The thing in her head began tearing at her brain, fighting the gravitational force as they began to plummet towards the earth. She screamed at the pain inside her head. The scream turned from terror to hunger. She knew she needed living tissue to survive. It needed living tissue to survive. In a desperate move, it began feeding on Marta, liquefying muscle tissue and absorbing it. It didn't want to destroy the brain yet. It may be able to use this vessel at some point. Marta shrieked as she felt her lower extremities begin to be digested. It was a slow, agonizing pain. Somehow, it knew that its host was dying faster than it could feed. It was struggling to breathe. It began to absorb faster. It breached her skin and began taking layers of it into itself. Intestines in the bowel, kidneys in the liver. Her last words, whispered on dying lips, were, "Benji, mi amor, a tus brazos vengo." And with that, Marta Cortez was no more. It felt her slip away, and so it tried to devour as much as it could before the flesh was no longer useful. Through her eyes it saw the clouds rush by as the control panel burst into flames. It witnessed the green flora of the planet it was rushing into. If it could savor this meal before impact, perhaps it could propagate on this new planetoid. Perhaps there was enough food here to spread itself. Then there was blackness. Chapter 1. Pastor Mickey O'Donnell had been preaching at Emmanuel Lutheran Church for over 23 years. He and his wife were welcomed into their new church family with open arms and potluck. They were young then. 10 years later, his son Kevin would be born. He had married, baptized, and buried many of those people that had first welcomed him. In this day and age, his congregation had become divided over political differences. Then it was this COVID-19 pandemic and pile on the riots that had began when a black man from Minnesota was killed by a police officer. How did one preach the gospel of hope to a group of people that had none? He didn't know. He had to tweak his sermons in order not to offend anyone. Deep inside, he felt guilty for censoring the Word of God. But since the pandemic, the collection plate had gotten a little light since the prosperous years. He watched his friends and family barrage one another for having their own opinions that disagreed with each other. It hurt his heart to see such madness play out online that he couldn't look most parishioners in the face on Sunday mornings, with their pious faces dressed to the nines and singing loudly their reverence for the Lord. It was the introduction of Shine, Jesus, Shine that prompted his Amen at the end of his silent pre-service prayer. He stood and draped the brightly colored stole around his neck. He looked at his acolytes, Mark Ewer and James Bullock, and gave them a nod to light their candle wicks. They walked slowly from the entrance of the worship hall towards the altar. An acolyte on each side dressed similarly to him, and he with his hymnal open as he sang along with his congregation. His sermon was based on 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. Avoid such people. His point that he was trying to drive home was how society was becoming what the church fathers spoke of. With the selfies of Instagram and Facebook, the misinformation of Twitter and the like, how we have forgotten to be humble and kind. Instead, we have become lovers of ourselves and material things. We were ridiculing one another instead of holding each other up. Then he shared a story about his childhood. He had gone to high school in Gretna, Nebraska. He wasn't what most would call popular, and he really didn't fit in with outcasts either. He had dabbled a bit in drama, got average grades, and wasn't really into any sports. A fellow student named William, who was top jock in his class, had made it his life's goal to make Mick's school career a living hell, which he did from grades 8th to grade 12. He had bullied him terribly throughout his many lunch hours, study halls, and recesses. On the first day of his senior year, he walked into his accounting class and read over the seating chart. The table was set up for 2 students each. He noticed he was charged with sitting next to William. He approached his teacher privately before the bell rang and spoke of his animosity with the seating chart. "I'm sorry, Mr. So," he said, "but Will and I have never got along. I just thought if we sat together it would cause problems with class." "May I ask you something, Mr. O'Donnell?" she said. "Yes, ma'am." "Would you be willing to try it for a couple of weeks to see how it goes?" Well, if it becomes a problem, then I will gladly move one of you to another seat." "I guess so," he said reluctantly. He sat nervously in his assigned seat when William came in and looked at the seating chart. He looked up at Mick and then down again at the chart. "Mr. So," he whispered. "Yes, William," she answered. This seating chart. I am aware of the troubles you and Mr. O'Donnell have been getting along, but he is willing to try the seating arrangement for a couple of weeks." "He is?" "Yes, William, he is. Perhaps you think you can as well." "Well, if he said—" "Please, have a seat then, William, while I do roll call." "Yes, ma'am." It was from that day on that he and William had become best friends. Despite their differences, they had put all that aside and took the higher ground. It had also happened that they both went to the same college together for the first 2 years in Kansas City. William on a wrestling scholarship, Mick on a Pell Grant. Eventually, one became a physical education teacher and the other a Lutheran pastor, and they are still good friends to this day. He ended the service with "Holy, holy, holy," and sent his flock home with a handshake and a blessing. When he finished saying his farewells, he went to his office and began taking his vestments off, and his son Kevin came in. "Hey, Dad," Kevin said. "Hey, kiddo," Mick said with a smile. "Coffee on?" "Just started the brew." "What'd you think about today's sermon?" Kevin sat down in his dad's big comfy leather chair with a thoughtful look on his face. Mick loved that look. Whenever asked a question, he always made a great effort to fully think it through. "I just realized how a lot alike we are," he said finally. "Oh?" Mick said. "How so?" "I'm not really that popular either. Don't really fit into any cliques at school. I do get a little razzing from the kids about being the son of a pastor. Kids are always trying to get me to do something, I don't know, bad." Mick loosened the tie he was wearing and looked at his son. He loved the man he was becoming. He was 13 now. Shared that fire engine red hair he had at that age. Freckles and 2 dimples whenever he smiled or was in deep thought. He had those emerald green eyes of his mother's that sparkled when the sun hit them right. "Have they succeeded?" Mick asked jokingly. "Only God will know," Kevin smiled back. "Maybe I better call him." "I read that Bible verse, the one you preached about today. There's a lot of truth in that. Everyone I know is on TikTok. Some of the girls are on there dancing half naked, while others are helping homeless people and posting it so they get more likes. It's not even for the right reasons." "I really wish you wouldn't go on that platform, Kevin. Your mother and I really abhor it." "I understand, Dad, but it's not like I post on it or anything." "Do you need a ride to school tomorrow?" "No, sir. I've decided to take my bike on the paper route and just ride it into school after that." "Sounds good. Help yourself to a cup, Kevin. Sounds like it's done." Kevin poured a cup for himself and one for his dad. "So let me get this straight," Director Hollister said from her view screen. "We have an extraterrestrial virus that has escaped quarantine on the International Space Station?" He said it with the air of a scolding grandfather. It left a bitter taste in her mouth, and she didn't want to be talked to like she was some bumbling 5-year-old trying to run a private space program. "We don't have control down here, sir," she worded carefully. "Despite protocols on your end, our civilian astronaut went rogue. We don't have control over what one of our "Stop calling them that," he spat. "They did not earn the right to be called astronauts. I told everyone it was a mistake to allow civilians, leave alone rich civilians, to enter a government project. Now look what a mess we're in." "We are tracking the life pod, sir." "Well, thank God for small miracles." "They're moving at high velocity towards southern Kansas. Impact should be in the next hour." "Send me those coordinates as soon as you can. I'll have a team rendezvous with our little rich space traveler." "We have a search and rescue team heading in that—" "Belay that, Miss Thompson, immediately." "Excuse me?" "We cannot allow this to get out of hand. You've seen some of the video footage from the space station?" "Yes, sir." "Well, I don't know what that thing is up there, but if there's a chance that it's falling to Earth via one of your rich kids, then we're going to need professionals on this." The tape in question was a disaster. The science team had found rock samples from a meteor and brought it on board the ISS Mark IV. Inside of this rock, there was a virus of some alien origin that got loose and began to infect the crew. Protocols were implemented, and the space station was locked down. The footage showed the crew, one by one, turning into ravenous cannibals. Every space agency across the globe watched the footage, and it was a miracle that it wasn't leaked to the internet. The public had no idea what nightmare was orbiting around the planet, and especially didn't know what was plummeting to the ground. Sure, there would be sightings of the crash. There would be viral videos hitting social media. The tin hat conspiracy theorists would be podcasting their brains out, but for the most part, it would go unnoticed. At least that was the hope for all concerned. Greta Thompson disconnected the call and took a deep sigh. She grit her teeth and slammed her fist onto the glass top of her desk. "That misogynistic piece of shit," she screamed. Neil Flint peeked his head in. "Problem?" "That fucking Hollister from NASA. He's such a pompous ass, I can't deal with him on a good day, leave alone in a bad situation like this." "Any word from the big guy upstairs?" "I have a meeting with him at 2 o'clock today." "Oh, it's been nice working with you." "Fuck you, Flint." That would be a breach of HR standards. Thompson raised her middle finger, and Neil left. All right. That's all I got written in that book. So, that is an excerpt from my manuscript, Jeremiah 19:9, in the beginning. So hopefully we'll get that done here soon. Well, I don't know about soon, but in the very near future, maybe possibly in the next year or so. I am working on another novel right now, hoping to get that done next year. But I don't know. Things are always planned, and things don't always work out. Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Cuz. I appreciate it. So I'm going to be talking a little more about what I've been doing as far as creative endeavors go. I'll be talking to you guys on Friday night. I'm going to be going live with a what's going on at the Buzz. Hey, thanks, Kevin. I bet you would like that, Kevin, dude. Anyway, on Friday I'll keep you guys updated as far as what's going on here. What the readership, the viewership, the subscribership, all of that stuff, YouTube, Facebook, where we're at with numbers. All thanks to you guys for sharing with your friends and getting them to like this page and subscribe to YouTube and all that stuff, and your guys' constant watching. Put out a little blurb out there for you guys, some of my top followers that are constantly here, always watching or taking a peek and sharing and caring. So, that'll be on Friday night. Next week on Apocalypse Humpday, we are going to be jumping into Zechariah 14:12. Humanity's Last Stand. That is my first zombie novel. It actually did pretty well, and it still does sell a few copies. I have a link on here during this broadcast that you can click on. It'll take you to the Amazon page where it's on sale, and you guys can pick that up and read it for yourself or read along with me next week. So that's going to happen then. In the meantime, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your week. Hope you had a good holiday. And don't forget to tune in for Tunes for Tuesday as well. That is, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to be playing for you guys on Tuesday. But the viewership for that little thing that I do is growing as well. So I'm really happy with it. Actually very happy with you guys for coming and checking it out. So, anyhow, thanks again, you guys, for everything. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. This video or any other video that you like, show your friends what I'm doing. If you like it and you want to share it with them, have them join up. And I'm still working on some swag for you constant viewers. I'm going to get a mailing list done and start getting some stuff out to you guys for appreciation. In the meantime, I'm out of here. We'll jump into the zombie apocalypse again next week. We'll see you there. Peace, folks. Love ya. Bye-bye now.